So here it is, the long-awaited video of the galley. And here's the first cut. What we thought would never come, finally it happened. And we decided to use a Festool for these cuts on this build because every cut would be visible to the naked eye, and we wanted to make sure that everything lined up perfectly. So here we are making the first measurement and cut for the galley back wall. As we move it over to the Runaway, we dry fit it to make sure everything lines up the way we wanted it to, and we do our first dry fit. A nice snug fit, which is exactly what we were looking for. There were so many things running through my mind at this point because we were so excited to finally get our hands on the camper and actually start the process. The wife even came out. She was definitely a big portion of the build, the design, and we even put her on some hand tools. A little hesitant in the beginning, but once she realized how easy it is to use this circular saw, she was definitely excited to make a couple cuts for us. Here you can see my good friend setting up the Craig. Without him, this project would have probably never even come close to the way it turned out. And all the thanks truly goes to Jason. Fantastic man to work with. And here we're making all of our holes for the back side of the countertop so that nothing's visible. It's very clean and neat. And then we go ahead and we do a dry fit of it as well. You'll notice as I hand these pieces in that there's angled aluminum alongside the walls of this Runaway. The reason we did that is to help support and give structure to this galley and the countertop. There's a lot of concern with these new composite Runaways that people have fear that these walls may not be structurally sound to mount anything to, but I assure you I've done thousands of miles in this Runaway with this galley installed, and it is absolutely structurally solid. My wife and I have had zero regrets installing a galley in the back of a composite Runaway. These walls have been very well suited for this build, mostly because of the way it's structurally built and the way it's supported on all four sides. And at the end of the video, I'm going to go ahead and show you the angled aluminum, how we mounted it, and actually what hardware we used. Here we see Jason begins to cut out the opening for the sink so we can dry fit it before we go ahead and remove everything. We do our paint, our laminate, and all of our other touches before we finally secure it permanently. We decided to go with a 15-inch RV sink, and we actually designed the entire galley around it because it was a standard size sink, and we knew that would give us enough room to work with to do our dishes in. But also, sacrificing 15 inches wasn't a big deal overall on the inside of the Runaway, so we knew that that would be a good size to go with. 13 would be a little too small, and anything larger we figured would be sacrificing a little too much space on the inside. After getting the sink in just right, we start to discuss a little more about our future plans with it. This entire build was methodically thought out long before each cut because we wanted to make sure that when we were finished, it truly looked perfect. So we begin to clean up, vacuum all of our debris, because now we're going to go ahead and remove everything again. We're going to begin our finish work with the lamination and with the paint. Here we see we're spraying on the adhesive for the lamination. Once we put a couple coats on there, you have to allow it to sit. So while it is sitting, we move on to our angle work. We made sure that all the lumber in the Runaway, once it was finished and installed, that it was cragged as well as had 90-degree aluminum. This allowed each piece to be fastened to the piece next to it in a way that it's extremely strong, extremely secure, and we knew for safety reasons while it's going down the road that nothing was going to cause it to come apart or loosen up with time and miles. Here you can start to see that it's becoming evening, and we allowed enough time for the lamination to adhere to the wood, and we're cutting out the opening for the sink so that we could install the countertop that evening and move on with the project. After we take all of our final measurements and we have everything laid out where it needs to go, I begin to install the angled aluminum for the back to the countertop here. As the evening comes to an end on the first day, we're definitely exhausted, but as things start to come together and we start seeing things get installed, everything's fitting perfectly. It puts so much emphasis on measuring twice and cutting once. When things start to go together and we have no issues, it definitely brings a lot of joy to the job. This is the left back corner of the Runaway where our propane tank's mounted on the outside. You can see the angled aluminum that we installed here. And these are the screws that we used. They were fantastic for the build. And this is the interior opening. I really appreciate you guys watching part 1 of this Galley build. In part 2, I'm going to show you our 12-volt electrical system, including our batteries, our lighting, our instant hot water heater, and our charging system. So stay tuned.